How did people build cities on water without modern technology? Who created underground megacities? And why did entire civilizations disappear? On the edge of Pohnpei, where the Pacific tide collides with black volcanic rock, a city rises from the sea. Nan Madol stretches across 98 man-made islets, each built from basalt columns that weigh as much as a bus. These stones did not come from the shallow reef beneath the city. Geochemical analysis traces most of them to the island's western ridge, 25 kilometers away, across open ocean. The question hangs in the salt air. How did ancient builders move thousands of tons of stone across shifting tides, without metal, wheels, or engines? Local custodians speak of ancestral knowledge, of tides read like a clock, and labor marshaled by the Nan chiefs. Oral histories describe a tidal window, just a few hours each day, when the reef lay exposed, allowing teams to drag or float the stones on timber rafts. Modern tidal modeling confirms these fleeting opportunities. Coral foundations beneath the islets, dated by uranium series analysis to between 1180 AD and 1200, reveal a burst of construction that transformed the lagoon within a single generation. No written record explains the logistics. Only the stones remain, each one a silent witness to a feat that defies easy explanation. The scale of movement, the precision of placement, and the coordination required suggest a mastery of environment and organization that modern engineers still puzzle over. As waves crash against basalt walls, the secret of Nan Madol's creation remains locked between land and sea. Great Zimbabwe rises from the savanna in sweeping arcs of stone, its walls curving with a precision that seems to defy the absence of mortar. Here, granite blocks, split from local dolerite outcrops, are stacked in perfect interlocking courses, some running for over 200 meters. Each block is shaped by hand, set so tightly that even centuries later, rain and roots have failed to pry them apart. The walls soar up to 11 meters, bearing their own weight through friction and geometry alone. Experimental archaeology shows that the load is distributed across the faces of each stone, locking the structure with a strength that rivals modern masonry. For decades, colonial myths tried to erase the indigenous origins of this place, crediting outsiders for its grandeur. But the ceramics unearthed inside, bowls and jars whose patterns match the Proto-Shona, date the city's occupation to between the 11th and 15th centuries. Zimbabwean archaeologists point to these layers as proof that local hands shaped every block, guided by knowledge passed down through generations. The endurance of these walls is not an accident. It is the result of engineering choices, careful selection of dolerite, precise fitting, and an understanding of how dry stone breathes and settles over time. As one site archaeologist puts it, you can read the story of our ancestors in the curve of every wall. The legacy of Great Zimbabwe stands not just in stone, but in the quiet correction of history itself. Beneath the calm surface of the world's coastal waters, sonar pulses sweep across the seafloor and return images that defy expectation. Grids of streets and foundations appear where only sand and silt should lie. In the blue haze off southern Japan, multi-beam imaging reveals right-angled avenues and terraces at Yonaguni. Their outlines too precise for nature alone. Far from the Mediterranean shore, the sunken city of Meroë emerges, mapped in crisp detail by side-scan sonar. Columns, courtyards, and mosaic floors now silent under 6 meters of water. Marine archaeologists drift above these sites, their screens flickering with ghostly maps of lost neighborhoods. Sediment cores pulled from the seabed tell a story of sudden change, a layer of fine sand dated by optically stimulated luminescence to a narrow window, pinpoints a moment when land gave way to sea. Was it a slow drowning as the ice caps melted, or a violent surge from earthquake and subsidence? The evidence offers no comfort. Entire cities, erased in a generation, leave no scrolls or witnesses, only the geometry of their streets, preserved in darkness. The total loss of context is absolute. What remains is a mystery, measured in sonar echoes and the cold certainty that the sea can erase not just buildings, but the memory of how and why they stood. High in the Andes, a network of stone roads winds across ravines and snowfields, climbing to heights where the air thins and storms sweep in without warning. The Inca called this Kapak Neon, the Great Road, a lifeline stretching over 4,000 kilometers, built without iron, wheels, or draft animals. Colonial ledgers, preserved in brittle archives, record quotas for the Emita. Each village assigned men and women to the labor tax, their names and days tallied in neat rows. Some years, entire communities vanished into the mountains for weeks, summoned to carve steps from living rock or haul andesite slabs up switchback trails. The engineering is relentless. On slopes too steep for carts, the Incas cut the earth into terraces, anchoring roads with retaining walls that still hold firm 6 centuries later. Where cliffs drop away, they drove stone stairways straight into the mountain, the gradient never exceeding 6%, just enough for a loaded llama to keep its footing. Drainage channels lined with river cobbles run beneath the paving stones, channeling rainwater down to the valleys and preventing the road from washing away. In the wet season, runoff pours through these channels, yet the surface stays dry enough for runners to carry messages from Quito to Cusco in less than a week. At river crossings, the roads leap across chasms on rope bridges, woven from ichu grass and tested each year for strength. Modern tensile tests confirm these bridges could hold 30 tons, their fibers twisting under load but refusing to snap. Along the route, tambos, stone-way stations, dot the high passes, offering shelter and supplies to travelers and the emperor's envoys. Every detail speaks to a system, a state that turned mountain wilderness into a highway, powered not by machines, but by the hands and backs of thousands. The scale of coordination, the precision of the gradients, the endurance of the roads all hint at a logistical mind as formidable as any in history. In the silence of the high Andes, the stones still bear the marks of discipline and ambition, a collective will that bent the mountains to its purpose. Deep beneath the soft hills of Cappadocia, a labyrinth descends into darkness, carved not for the eyes of kings, but for the survival of thousands. Derinkuyu is no myth or legend. It is a city hollowed from volcanic tuff, dropping more than 60 meters below the ground, with a maze of tunnels, chambers, and sealed doors that once sheltered entire communities from the dangers above. The oldest soot stains, trapped in the porous stone, hint at fires burning here as early as the first millennium BC. Yet the city's greatest expansion came centuries later, when waves of refugees, fleeing war and persecution, vanished into its depths. Archaeologists map 18 levels, each stacked upon the next, connected by steep stairways and guarded by rolling stone doors. These are massive discs that could be wedged shut to block invaders or poison gas. But the true marvel of Derinkuyu is not its defenses. It is the AIR itself. Over 40 slender shafts pierce the earth, some stretching the full height of the city. No matter how deep you go, the air stays fresh, drawn through the tunnels by a natural pressure difference between the cool underground and the warmer surface. Modern engineers have measured the airflow at nearly 150 cubic meters per minute, enough to keep 20,000 people breathing for days. The shafts branch and intersect, a web of redundancy, so that even if one passage collapsed, the city would not suffocate. Two wells plunge into ancient aquifers, feeding livestock and people alike. The volcanic rock buffers the temperature, holding the city steady, cool in the Anatolian summer and warm in the biting winter. No written plans survive. Only the stone, the air, and the silence remain, bearing witness to a knowledge of environment and survival that rivals anything above ground. In Derinkuyu, the puzzle is not just how people dug so deep, but how they designed a living, breathing world beneath the earth, one that could outlast siege, disaster, and the slow forgetting of time. Across the Nubian sands, hundreds of sharp-angled pyramids rise in sudden clusters, their silhouettes crowding the horizon where the desert meets the sky. This is Mero, the heart of the ancient Kushite kingdom, where more than 200 pyramids were raised in just 6 centuries, a burst of construction between 300 BC and 350 AD that has no parallel in Africa or beyond. Satellite multispectral imaging, only recently applied to this landscape, reveals a density of monuments far greater than ground surveys ever recorded. The stone itself tells a story. Blocks of red sandstone quarried along the Nile and ferried downstream on seasonal floodwaters, then hauled overland to the building fields. Each pyramid stands on a narrow base, its sides climbing at impossible angles, capped with limestone once gleaming in the sun. Beneath the sand, remote sensing data uncovers hidden tombs and subpyramidal chambers, their outlines invisible to the naked eye. The logic of this monumental program remains elusive. Why did the Kushite rulers choose this moment, this place, to fill the desert with such a concentrated geometry of death? The boom is as sudden as its end. By the middle of the 4th century, the building stops. The silence that follows is as dense as the sand itself, leaving behind a field of questions and an architecture that refuses to explain itself. On the sun-bleached hills of Malta, stone temples rise from the earth, older than the pyramids, older than Stonehenge. Radiocarbon dates fix their origins between 3600 BC and 2500 BC, pushing the story of monumental building further back than most textbooks allow. Each temple is shaped from Globigerina limestone, quarried from outcrops 2 to 5 kilometers away. The stone is soft enough to carve, yet the blocks weigh as much as 6 tons, and their journey across the rocky landscape leaves no clear trail. Inside, corbelled roofs arch overhead, layer upon layer of stone set back just enough to form a dome, each course leaning on the one below. This method, known as corbelling, creates a vault without wood or mortar, redirecting the weight outward into walls that still stand after 5,000 years. The chambers align with the solstice, admitting a shaft of sunlight to mark the turning of the seasons. No copper tool marks, no written plans, only the silent evidence of engineering that seems to leap ahead of its time. The question lingers in the limestone dust. What knowledge guided these builders, and how much has slipped from memory beneath the slow drift of centuries? Each impossible city leaves more questions than answers. Their engineering defies what we think we know. Today, new tools scan old stones, but much remains hidden, buried beneath centuries of silence. Our history has gaps science cannot yet fill. What else lies waiting? Just beyond the edge of memory?